Nonsense, Season 3, Episode 37, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Chittle.
This time we're looking at why every home needs a heat pump right now. Up next.
Like right now? Like I got to start installing these today?
Today. I have 2 heaters and 2 air conditioners, and they're not very old. They're considered fairly efficient as far as these things go. Yeah. And I only pay slightly more than a fortune every month.
That's good.
Would I need 4 heat pumps?
Well, okay, first of all, I'm not like an HVAC installer. Like I
want the details of how this works.
We're on your patio. I'm not even inside. I don't know.
Yeah?
No, my hunch is you would probably need 2.
Will my house be as warm as it is in the winter and as cold as it is in the summer as it is with the traditional HVAC? I want to know I'm going to lose something because of this.
Yes and no.
I'm just wondering because you're so much more in the know on this stuff than I am.
They're kind of, the general heat pumps are one-to-one replacements for your HVAC air handlers. So if you have 2, you'll likely get 2. So right now you've got 2 air conditioners, 2 heaters. One of those is an HVAC unit, 1 heater, 1 air conditioner. That would be replaced with 1 heat pump.
Okay.
It's kind of the way that would work.
So I could really save money because those 4 units would be reduced down to 2.
No, you have 2 units that would be reduced to 2. 1 unit has both a heater and an air conditioner. It's 1 unit.
Yes, but currently I have 4 units. I'd be replacing 4 units with 2. Am I wrong?
You said you had 2 heaters and 2 air conditioners.
Yes, that's 4 units. It's 4 pieces of kit.
1 heater.
They're actually in 4 different locations.
Probably not. Should I just go inside and look?
Should I have gotten an HVAC guy for this segment?
You typically have an air handler. It has a fan in it that blows air.
Would I need to do a lot of reducting?
I feel like you don't really want to know the answers. You just want to pepper me with questions. You should not have to reduct. What do you really want to know the answer to these questions?
I do.
Okay.
Is this something I should do at my house?
Well, how old is your existing system?
5 years. They're all 5 years old.
And how often do you use your HVAC?
AC used pretty much all summer, but at a very low level. It's not like, it's not straining or anything. It's we don't make it freezing, but we do always keep it blowing.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know normally you ask the questions, but how would you know if your air conditioner was straining? Like, would it be sweating? Like, how would you know that it's straining? You're like, I don't hear it grunting, so I don't think it's straining.
Yeah, it doesn't groan ever.
How do you? That's such an interesting. I mean, look, I also felt sadness when I saw those Waymos get torched, but I don't walk by my AC when it's on and go, wow, he's really working hard. I'm going to get him some of that good compressor oil next time I go to Home Depot. I'm so confused.
I can't tell you the specific numbers because I don't know them off the top of my head. Okay. But I don't put it down super low. I don't need it super low, but I do need airflow.
It's starting like into a therapy session.
I know, right?
If you've got a relatively recent air conditioner, and let me preface all this by saying I'm not an HVAC technician. I don't know the specifics of like a York system versus a Carrier system, but generally speaking, a modern air conditioner is going to be in a similar level of efficiency as a modern heat pump.
Yeah.
It's not going to be better for cooling. Where you're going to get an efficiency improvement is for heating, right? Which in Southern California, we have to do sometimes a couple days a year.
I've turned it on up to 2 times a year.
You're always like that second time, like, oh boy, here we go. Dust her off again.
Okay, heat pumps, the appliance that could help save the planet and your wallet. Let's go.
I'm an HVAC tech now, aren't I?
If every American home adopted heat pumps, residential emissions could drop by 36 to 64%, cutting overall U.S. emissions by 5 to 9%. This climate-friendly appliance, more efficient than furnaces, saves average households over $550 yearly. Federal and state incentives, along with evolving grid infrastructure towards renewables, make widespread adoption increasingly affordable and crucial for decarbonization, even improving public health through better cooling.
My kids are really good at decarbonizing things. They'll just take sodas and shake them up.
Decarbonating them.
Yeah.
Listen, 36 to 64% is a big spread.
A third to 2/3.
For how much heat pumps could cut residential and overall U.S. emissions.
Totally.
Tell me what the variables are. Why is that spread so big?
That is an excellent question and one that got me to scratch my head as well when I saw it. So it depends on a whole bunch of things. And in no particular order, it depends on what powers your heat pump. Okay. So like what's the fuel that's going into your heat pump? The electricity.
Sure.
What's generating it?
Okay, so what's making the electricity is going to make the
difference.
Yes,
of course.
If it's solar electricity that I'm getting out of the sun.
Coal power plant.
Yeah, my local power plant is coal powered.
Yeah, so if you're switching from, on the furnace side, if you're switching from burning gas, to electricity that is then powered by coal, you're probably not having as big of an efficient effect. You actually will have some, which I'll talk about here in a minute.
Sure.
But you're not going to get as much of the efficiency.
You're going to get 5% and you're not going to get 65%.
Yeah, because you're still, if you think about it from a carbonization perspective, you're still generating lot of emissions.
Yeah.
However, one, you don't control that. Two, there does seem to be a general line up to the right for renewables.
Yeah.
I say, generally because who knows what the future holds, and especially with our current policy. But the general goal seems to be moving towards more renewables. So as that happens, you'll already be positioned to benefit from that because you're using electricity. If you're using gas, it doesn't matter how many wind turbines they put in your backyard.
Sure.
You're still using gas. You're still using dinosaur fuel. So that's one. Climate makes a big difference. So if you're in a colder climate, they're going to be a little less efficient. If you're in a really cold climate, you may have a heat pump that uses electric resistance backup, basically an electric
Resistive heating.
furnace.
Yeah. It's basically a heater.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is in fact, a heater. So then your efficiency isn't going to be any better than that.
Yeah.
Even swap. Your house actually makes a big deal, how efficient your house is.
Yeah.
And this is insulation, like generally a smart thing to do. Do you have double pane windows? Are your walls insulated? Most of your heat loss is through your attic. Do you have recent attic insulation? Things like that are going to make a big difference. So you're going to see a greater efficiency improvement if you have a house that's more insulated.
Parts of my house were built in 1929.
Yeah.
So there's parts of it that aren't good. By the way, when I see them building the new houses on the block, they get to a certain stage where they actually wrap them in plastic before they put out the outside.
Tyvek or whatever.
Yeah. So they get these houses so that there's like no air gets in or out unintentionally.
I think it's a vapor barrier,
which is really cool.
Yeah, it's really neat how much these things have improved.
Should I tear down my house and start over? That's my question for you.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. Like you were asking earlier, should you replace your existing HVAC? Odds are, dollar for dollar, you're probably going to get a better return
from insulation.
Looking at insulation, right? And some of that can be pretty gross. Like especially think about in-wall insulation. Pretty much anything built before like the 80s, you should probably be looking at insulation in the walls and what was done.
I've had insulation injected into the walls. That actually is what they did.
That's typically what you want to have done, which makes a huge difference. It does also make a huge mess when you need to get in there to do things, but that's usually somebody else's problem.
I was on vacation.
Yeah, no, I meant like later when you're cutting a hole.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've had these mixed emotions, and my house is also not quite as old as yours, but pretty old. I'll cut a hole in an exterior wall, and I'm like, oh, there's no insulation. This is great. It's easy for running wires. And then I'm like, oh wait, most of them are filled, but every now and again I'll find one that it's been not replaced in. So
I'm partially psychotic, and I like to have insulation on the interior walls too because it kills sound.
Yeah. Wool wrap. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love it when the sound doesn't travel throughout the house.
It's just not expensive. The wall's open. Go ahead and put it in. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, no, my walls were already up. Yeah. They had to inject it. That was not free.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I don't even understand how any of this works. You got to back up a little bit. I need a short primer on how a heat pump works, how it's different from a traditional HVAC system.
Let's start with how a traditional air conditioner system works. Not the furnace side, just the air conditioning side.
Yeah. Ben Franklin in a wet shirt.
Has a wet shirt.
I can tell you the whole story. This is how it was discovered. He discovered it was cooler for him to wear a wet shirt than it was to wear a dry shirt.
Yes.
Because as the water evaporated from the shirt, it was cooling him down.
Look, I'm not sure Evel Knievel could jump the chasm that we got to get from evaporative cooling to refrigeration, but
it's how it works. It's how we discovered it.
He was more like, you can get things wet, and then when the water changes state, that's when you see the big energy change, right? It turns out it's I forget, it's like the equivalent of like 20 degrees or something. Like changing temperature of water 20 degrees, something like that is the same as changing its state.
Then they stopped using water. They started using ether and trying other things that would evaporate even faster. And they got things really cold.
In a traditional AC system, you have a refrigeration cycle. What it does is it literally moves heat. And the way it does this is you have a compressor, which uses electricity to pressurize a refrigerant. It's a closed system. Okay. That compressed refrigerant will run through a condenser coil. That condenser coil dumps the heat outside. This is why this is the big thing you have sitting outside your house. It's got a big fan on it. It's super loud. And when it kicks on, it is hot. You can feel the hot air coming out of it because what it's doing is pulling the heat out of the compressed refrigerant.
And the coils are basically like a radiator. Yes. They're just allowing a lot of exposure to the liquid inside.
Maximizing surface area so you can get most of the heat out. All the fan is doing is increasing the amount of air that touches the coils, right? So you want to make sure your coil is clean, free of debris. You want to make sure your fan works. And that fan, the fan is not the compressor. That fan is just moving air across the coil to move as much heat as possible. The refrigerant, closed system, now travels back inside, and then in your air handler, typically in your attic, there is an evaporative coil. That evaporator absorbs the heat from the air inside your house and puts it into the refrigerant.
Got it.
It then goes back down to the compressor, the low side of the compressor, gets compressed, the whole cycle starts over. So you're dumping heat outside and then putting that heat back into the refrigerant inside by running air across the evaporator. You've got a fan inside your air handle that just moves air so that it moves across the evaporator. A heat pump is exactly the same thing in every way, except there is the ability to reverse the action by adding a reversing valve.
The outside coils are on the inside.
So the coils are effectively the same. You still have coils and fans. You've got a coil and fan inside of the air handler.
Sure.
You have a coil and fan outside in what we would typically call the condenser. But in a heat pump, you have a valve that can reverse the direction of the flow. And when you reverse the direction of the flow, now you can do expansion inside. You can basically make the outside, what was the condenser in a traditional HVAC system, you can make an evaporator, which means it will absorb heat from the air outside and put it into the refrigerant. Then when it's inside, it can condense in what was previously used as an evaporator and do the opposite, right? It'll dump the heat that you picked up outside to the air inside, and it moves the heat back and forth.
So it's the same coils, it's just you using them for different jobs.
Yes.
The condenser coil becomes the evaporator coil, the evaporator coil becomes the condenser coil.
Exactly. And this reversing valve is what allows that to happen.
I got it.
In a traditional HVAC system, whether you've got a heater that's gas or electric, doesn't really matter. You've got with a gas furnace, you're about 95% efficient.
Yeah.
That's pretty reasonable. With an electric resistance heater, you're pretty close to 100% efficient.
Wow.
When you get to a heat pump, this is again, just for the heating function. When you get to a heat pump, you're between 300 to 400% efficient, which is pretty incredible.
I am more efficient than I could possibly be. How's that even work? I don't understand. How are you 300 or 400%? I know 1 to 1. 300 or 400% sounds nuts.
You would think if somebody walked into if you're in a meeting and somebody said, oh, well, I'm super efficient, I can do that job at 300% efficiency, you would immediately make a meme about them and share it with all your friends. That does not make any sense. You can't be past 100%. In this particular case, it can. I kind of like that they use the word efficiency, but it does work. In that traditional heating system, right, like a gas furnace, you are burning gas. So 1 unit of energy of the gas that you burn makes
becomes 1 unit of heat.
Well, 0.95 units of heat. It's 95% efficient.
Sure.
So if it's electric, then you're spot on. 1 unit of electricity becomes 1 unit of heat. Perfect. When you're using a heat pump, it's not actually using the energy to create heat. It's using it to move it from one place to another. It's like a reverse refrigerator. It's grabbing that heat from outside air, even if it's cold, and then moves it inside. So for 1 unit of electrical energy, the heat pump can move 3 to 4 units of heat energy into your home. And that's where that 3 to 400%.
Because it's not heating the air, it's just moving
It's just
the air.
moving it. You're not violating physics. You're taking a different approach to how you're transferring heat.
Does it take a ton of power to make this work? Am I going to have to upgrade my whole home electrical system to do this? I probably should anyway, because mine's kind of old.
Sure.
And are there government incentives to offset the costs?
Great questions. So the TLDR is maybe on the upgrade side. Typically, if you currently have air conditioning, you likely do not need to upgrade your electrical system.
Okay.
Why?
I have enough amps going to the air conditioners.
Because your air conditioner is the same as a heat pump.
Okay.
A heat pump is just an air conditioner running in both directions.
Okay.
If you don't have an air conditioner, then you likely don't have enough electrical service already deployed to run the compressor. That's the thing that's going to use the most amount of electrical power compared to your existing system. Generally speaking, if you already have AC, you can drop in a heat pump. No significant electrical changes required. If your home is older and doesn't have 200 amp service, believe it or not, these homes still exist. If you've had electric heat, or if you've had electric range or electric dryer, if you've already had AC, as I mentioned, you're likely going to be okay, at least at the panel level, right? Maybe you're running a couple wires.
I have the AC. I do not have electric heat. I do not have electric range.
So you're likely okay.
Yeah.
But if you've got a small 100 amp panel, then you're probably upgrading your panel and upgrading more power.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
It makes total sense. I just want to know what this job is going to entail.
Yeah, and then we have offered incentives in the past. So the Inflation Reduction Act, namely, offered up to $8,000 in rebates for the heat pump installation and $4,000 for electrical panel upgrades. Those are income qualified, but there were incentives for folks to upgrade.
Yeah.
You also can get tax credits, I think up to something like 30% off the cost of a heat pump, up to $2,000.
Anybody, or just is it income dependent?
I think those are income dependent. I think those are all income dependent. And then there's various rebates and tax credits and whatnot. So you've got some options in there. It varies state to state. I haven't looked for California, but at least at the federal level, most of those are income qualified.
Obviously, I want the most efficient system possible.
Of course.
Because I want the maximum savings. I don't really care about the upfront bill.
Sure.
I'll pay whatever the upfront bill is, so long as it's cheaper for me
over time,
over the life of me having over me having the system. Because I'm cheap. let's face it. Are there standardized ratings so I know I'm getting the maximum possible savings?
Yes, there is. And it is, but it is not just like one scalar that rules them all, because it depends on your conditions. It depends on especially your climate and where you are. You're going to see three main rating systems or scalar rating values. One is HSPF 2, which is heating seasonal performance factor 2. This is the revised standard as of 23.
What happened to HSPF 1?
Well, they made it better.
And they just threw out the entire first system?
It's their best standard yet.
Okay.
They both are the same. They both are...
Did they look back? It's like cholesterol. They look back and thought, we've just been doing this wrong all the time.
No, they both are measured the same way. So they divide the total heating output by the total electric input over an entire simulated heating season. Both HSPF 1 and HSPF 2 do the same thing. The testing conditions to determine those values are more stringent to better reflect how the heat pumps perform in homes for HSPF 2. So they just improved it to make it a better indicator.
Standard.
Yeah, a better indicator of what you're actually going to see. So HSPF 2, the important thing to know is that it's over the entire season.
Well, yeah, I don't need peak moments.
Well, sometimes you do, though. So SEER 2 is the seasonal energy efficiency ratio, and this is for cooling. So think of SEER 2 as the HSPF 2 for summertime, right? For cooling.
Spell SEER, what you're saying.
SEER. Yeah, seasonal energy efficiency ratio. And it's calculated by dividing the cooling output of an air conditioner by the total electrical energy consumed by the unit, right? During a typical cooling season.
Okay.
So SEER and HSPF 2 are measuring the same thing for the different seasons, right? One's for the heating season, one's for the cooling season. You then have something called the COP, the coefficient of performance. This is the ratio of heat output to energy input at a specific moment, not averaged over a whole season.
Why do I care about a moment?
Because you may care at different temperatures, depending on where you're at. If you live in Minnesota, you're going to care about what the COP looks like when it's cold out. You're going to care about what it looks like when it's 20 degrees. I mean, in Minnesota, even worse than that.
Yeah.
But if you're in California, you're not going to care about the COP at 20 degrees because you're never going to get there, right? You're rarely going to even be at 40 degrees if you're in Southern California. That's why they exist. Now, these have been somewhat aggregated into some buckets. The two that you'll see is, of course, the good old Energy Star, but you also have the NEEP score, the Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnership. And that's a cold climate rated score for systems tested to still perform in really frigid weather. And those are like the sort of cold climate optimized heat pumps.
You talked about at the beginning, you talked about the emissions based upon whoever is generating your electricity and however they're generating that electricity.
But let's be clear with emissions, though. It's not just the power plant that's generating emissions. When you have a gas furnace, you are still making emissions.
I'm locally making emissions.
Yes, in your home.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if it's a furnace, a water heater, a stove that burns natural gas, right? You've talked about this here before.
Yeah.
You get nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, you get particulate matter, specifically PM 2.5. And so those pollutants we've talked about previously, right? They're linked to asthma, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, all this stuff. With heat pumps, you have no combustion. So there's no localized combustion, which is good for you. It's good for your neighborhood. Think about if you're in a multi-unit dwelling. So if you're in an apartment, a condo, anything like that, you're going to help your neighbors and sort of this localized emissions by decreasing it. The other thing you get from heat pumps, which is interesting, is you get decreased heat-related deaths. And the reason is if you deploy a heat pump for heating, you also get the benefit of cooling. You see this a lot, especially in the young and the elderly, right? They're the most at risk since their bodies can't cool themselves as efficiently. And you'll see this with like asthma, right? Asthma because hot air creates ozone, which further irritates the lungs.
Gotcha.
Infants sweat less, and the elderly typically have some chronic conditions that change how they respond to heat. Now, this is the fascinating stat to me. On a typical summer day here in LA County, roughly speaking, 150 people might die of all causes. Sort of like your typical number of deaths. The number of deaths above that,
you're counting everything. Car crashes, you're counting
everything. Just on a typical summer day, you're seeing about 150
pissed off
people.
Wife who's got a meat cleaver in her hand, you're counting her.
Sure. All deaths.
Okay.
On a hot day, so like when you're in a period of extreme heat, we may see that number bumped up by as much as 30%. That's a pretty significant increase.
That's a bump. That's
when you're in extreme heat. Now, I think it's really hard for them to tie those all back into exactly what happened and why. But when you see it in sort of an aggregate like that.
Because of the heat, the wife got pissed, so she got a cleaver. Had it been a little cooler, she wouldn't have been as pissed. She would have done.
Exactly.
Just
buy a heat pump, keep your wife from chopping you up.
I think that's a good lesson to learn.
It is a good lesson to learn. And that's why you should get a heat pump.
Any last thoughts you want to give about heat pumps and why they're valuable for everyone before we go? We are down to the end.
These heat pumps are great, right? They're more efficient. If you're buying a new HVAC system, if your old system is broken or is aged out, I don't see any reason for you to consider getting anything other than a heat pump. You should absolutely buy a heat pump. Maybe if you're in a really cold climate or one of these weird extremes, maybe. But for the vast majority, virtually everyone listening to the show, you should be looking at a heat pump. That's awesome, right? They're more efficient. We talk about how effective these things are, and it's a better go-forward solution. And especially with the rebate programs, they're probably not going to cost you much more, even if they are at all upfront. And you're just going to save money year over year. What is more interesting to me there's a couple of companies, one in particular called Gradient, that are making remember those, your sort of old school, put the air conditioner in the window, right? Close the window over it. And it was an entire air conditioner baked into one unit. There are folks like Gradient that have built those, but they're heat pumps. And it looks like a modern version of that air conditioner. So instead of being like this giant microwave that you sling out the window, it looks almost like a saddle, like a horse saddle that sits over the frame of the window.
Sure.
And it gets you heat and air conditioning. And these are really interesting, especially think about like older multi-unit buildings that maybe have radiant heat or some other not great heat source. You can put these things in. It doesn't require a contractor. You can do it yourself. You don't have to go cutting holes. You don't need your landlord's approval. Like, it's something you can just put on the window.
Sure.
And now get not only better heat, but AC as well. I'm a big fan of these, and I'm assuming you're going to see more players in this space. And it's pretty cool.
IKEA is talking about getting into this business.
IKEA's done this, I think, in Sweden. I think they've actually made these in Sweden.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how those roll out. I mean, IKEA has a huge sustainability mission as part of their mission, so I'm not surprised that they've leaned into this. This could be really cool. I love the idea of being able to do it in IKEA and get a heat pump that you can hang out your window. It would be really neat.
Plus, if you know it works in Sweden, it works everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That gets seriously cold there.
Exactly. So it's these things are pretty neat. I mean, there's something a lot of folks don't know about. I find it nuts. New home builds or people are redoing their HVACs and it's not that they're not considering heat pumps. They don't even know about them. Like, no one's told them, hey,
because we didn't know.
Exactly. But like, how are contractors not rolling these things out at large? It's beyond me. I guess it's probably a function of education and tradition, right? Lack of education and just tradition being tradition.
Kickbacks from big heat.
Big heat. Well, what else is crazy? The folks that make the traditional HVAC systems also make the heat pumps.
That's true. It's all the same players.
Yeah, you'd think they'd want to be moving those folks over. And I do think it's a big part of what our previous policies have been.
It's the installers and what they know. They already know how to put in this kind of a system. They don't want to have to relearn all that.
But that's what's so nuts.
That's my guess.
It's the same. If anything, a heat pump in many ways is easier.
Simpler, yeah.
Because, it's probably same, but like, you don't need a gas line to it. Other than that, it's kind of the same. Additional valving, big deal. It's all built in. I find it nuts with traditional HVAC, and I'm assuming this will be true with heat pumps as they age. You can ask contractors, hey, I want to replace this component, and they'll tell you, no, can't be done. I'm like, but why not? Like, oh yeah, no, you just would never do that. Like, but why not? And for them, they typically they're a giant hammer, and they just come in and replace the whole system.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if that's a margin issue or they just don't want to deal with the work. But I'm like, dude, I can go to the store and spend a couple $100 on some flaring fittings and vacuum devices, and like, I could do this. Like, this isn't like, it's not like it's impossible.
Yeah.
So is it, you just don't want to spend the time on this, or like what's the problem? And then you can find some old timers still that will actually do the work. And I've had a guy replace a compressor on one of my condensers because everything else was fine. And like, he wasn't crazy about doing it, but he did it, and it's been great ever since. And I paid him for his time, and I paid him for the part, and away we went.
Yeah. So I have the guy who just comes in and rips me off.
Oh, good.
And just says, oh no, this all needs to go. We need to put in all brand new units. And they do that every, whatever.
10 years.
10 years, whatever the lifespan of these things are.
Yeah.
All right. We have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Oh yeah. I saw something that I suspect most everyone here listening did not see. And unfortunately, cannot see, at least not for a while, at least not with your own eyes. Tuesday morning, earlier this week, at around 2:30 a.m. local, a SpaceX crew Dragon capsule re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, which was visible from Southern California, ultimately splashing down in the Pacific Ocean.
Sure.
This was the Axiom mission AX-4. It's a private crewed spaceflight. What's interesting to note about that, by the way, is that the mission marked the first government-sponsored human spaceflight in over 40 years, and only the second overall for India, Hungary, and Poland, which I thought was pretty cool. I missed the one in May that came in. I saw it, but I didn't hear the sonic boom. I did not want to miss it this time. So at 1 a.m, Tuesday morning, I hiked up to an old Nike missile site. So we have these old Nike missile sites spread around Southern California. There's like 1940s air defense. Totally closed. You can't drive to it. I hiked up there I thought it'd be a cool place to try to get some pictures and hear this thing re-enter. It's like a little less than a mile hike, 350 feet of ascent. No big deal. Got there, literally not a human. Didn't see a person. It was just me and owls. Yeah. And there was this like heavy marine layer sitting in West LA. And I was like, this is going to be perfect. And of course, 15 minutes before reentry, the entire marine layer blew right up over top, right over me. So I couldn't see.
Because you brought cameras.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding.
You caused the marine layer because you brought cameras.
Exactly, because you brought cameras. And then even worse, I had everything set up, right? I had multiple cameras set up. I had my long lens. I had everything set ready to go. And as I'm staring, I know the trajectory of this thing's coming in. So all the cameras were pointed correctly. My tripods were pointed correctly. As I'm staring at this location, I started to notice moisture collecting on the lens because I'm looking up.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, oh, I got to get this off. As I go over to get, the mistake I made was I took my camera off my tripod. And as I went over to wipe it off with a little microfiber cloth, Of course, Reentry happened.
Sure. Boom, boom.
And I can't, no, I didn't get the sonic booms yet. I could see it. And I could not get I'm flustered. I could not get my camera back on the tripod. And I'm shooting so slow that there's no way I could handheld it and get it. So I'm pretty sure that screwed all of my long lens shots. And it was just, I should not have pulled it off the tripod, but that was my own mistake. I did hear the signature double boom, which was super cool. It was very quiet and very underwhelming, but I at least got a little recording of it. And now I can say I've heard a sonic boom in California, which was pretty awesome. So
I don't love sonic booms. You do. I mean, it's not my thing. But I like that they're quieter.
This was so quiet. I don't know if they changed the trajectory to try to not have it be over LA as much or whatnot, but it was very quiet. Anyway, I strongly suggest to anybody, if there's a Reentry event, go watch it. To see and hear it's incredible. And if you don't want to wait for one of those, it is also worth going and checking out these like missile sites because they're pretty neat places to go see. I'll put some links in the show notes.
Cool.
How about you? What have you seen?
Mine's going to be much easier for the listeners to actually go and do. Right. I finally watched HBO's Pee-wee as Himself.
Oh, wow.
Which is a deep dive into Paul Rubens' life and told largely through over 40 hours of interviews with him that turned out to be his final interviews.
Oh, wow.
He hadn't told the documentarians that he'd been battling cancer for the previous 6 years. So they got the final interviews with Pee-wee Herman, and it's that's
amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
The two-part documentary explores everything from his childhood to the birth of Pee-wee Herman to his skyrocketing fame with Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Pee-wee's Playhouse. It doesn't shy away from the scandals that rocked his career, revealing Rubens' constant fight to control his own story and persona. Great fun if you're a Pee-wee fan like me. Pee-wee as Himself, streaming on HBO Now.
That sounds super cool. I also like that you
don't even have to climb up to an old missile site.
I like you don't have to climb 350 feet in order to see it. There is that benefit. Although, a night when the fog is rolling in LA and you are by yourself and it's dead quiet, how many chances like that do you get? I mean, I'm just saying, you got options.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense, a truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. This on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Sigillo.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Nonsense is produced using the Audur multi-track digital audio workstation. Amazing, full-featured software, open source and free. This trick where you can understand me talking while music plays underneath is done with Audur. Check it out.
We'll be every Tuesday and Thursday mornings for more nonsense. Please join us. We'll be here most Tuesday and Thursday mornings for more nonsense, unless I can't be bothered to get out of bed. We'll be here every second Tuesday of the week and the third Thursday morning. We'll be here Thursdays and Monday. Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll be here weekdays